Yeah.
What sort of stories?
Oh, all the old stories, you know, the old fairy tales oh yes, he loved to be read to him. He soon could read him. He could pretty well read by the time he went to school. We had these comics, 2 comics a week he had. The little comics, Sunbeam, whatever it was. He used to look forward to these comics. Oh, comic day. And you couldn't do anything till you read them back from beginning to end. You had to drop everything and these comics. Then he'd go through it all himself and know what you'd read, you see, and look at the action, the pictures, and he'd...
What sort of toys did he like?
Little cars.
And were there other children for him to play with?
Yes, 1 or 2. Yeah, 1 or 2. Yeah. David Taylor from across the road and his sister. And yeah, I used to take him to the clinic, you see. There was a sort of clinic every week, have him weighed. And you had the district nurse if you had any problems and things like that, which was good. So you got to know other, more or less. But he wasn't a sociable child, Ian. He wasn't a sociable. I don't know if it was anybody's fault, but he was not a sociable child. People, you know, used to wheel him in the pram to Hampton to shop and about the village. Oh, you know, and people used to. You would never get him to smile. You know, he'd look at them with his great brown eyes, and you hardly ever get a smile. No, he didn't. He wasn't. He wasn't fond of strangers. Great one for routine. If you did the things every day at the same time, and then he was happy. But if you didn't, he didn't. You know, no. If he was late with his tea, or you were talking too long to somebody, or no, think of that. And he's the same now, you know. Very sober boy. Very sober little boy he was.
But played by himself?
Yes, yeah.
Amused himself?
Yes, quite a bit, yeah.
And how did he get on with little David in the house?
Oh, they got on quite well. David was 3 months older than Ian, but Ian was much more forward. Ian could walk when they came to me, but David couldn't. And David was, she had a mother, you know, Mrs. Nina's mother, his grandmother, and she spoilt David really. Well, she spoilt Ian too, because what she bought David, she always bought Ian, I'll grant her that. But he was brought up quite different to what Ian was brought up.
And what sort of discipline did you use? What sort of disciplinary measures if he did misbehave?
I think I just talked to him, you know. I don't think I ever smacked him. He wasn't a naughty child.
And were there any...
I mean, if I'd have had you first, Jean, I would never have had another one, I could tell you that.
Were there any illnesses or accidents?
No, he had a little sort of a boil thing on his neck once, Ian. And we took him to the doctor, and the doctor said, I won't lance it. He said, I think it'll come to a head. And I remember it burst in the night, and he must, I don't know whether it hurt him, but he let out such a yell, and Dad and I jumped out of bed, and it had burst, and it was a bit, you know, pussy and things, but I think he's still got the little mark there. And he had chickenpox later on, chickenpox and measles, but nothing. But no, he was quite a healthy baby.
And at what stage of his life, how old was he when Dad was away?
Well, he was born, I suppose, I can't remember exactly when Dad first went abroad, but Ian must have been about a year old, I suppose, when Dad...
Where did he go?
He was in North Africa. Where did he go before that? I think it was North Africa he went first. all through that campaign, and then right up through Italy, and then to Malta.
How did you feel when he came home and said he was going abroad?
Well, we expected it, you know. I mean, we knew any time. I mean, they were all going, weren't they? I mean, one thing, you didn't have to bear it knowing you were one of hundreds, Heather. You know, I mean, they all went.
How did you communicate?
Oh, air letter, and then they had a special sort of aerogram thing, which was just one sheet, which you could send, you know. Censored, of course. Everything was censored. Him to me and me to him, you know, always censored. You couldn't put exactly where he was, and I couldn't say to him how many bombs had dropped in the vicinity or anything. It would have all been scrawled out, but I mean, you could put family.
So did you get some letters that were cut out? With bits cut out?
One or two, yes, crossed out. But you just didn't put it, you know. You knew it would be, you know, you did no need to. I wasn't a spy, and he wasn't a spy. We didn't.
How often would you write?
Oh, about once a week.
And did he come home on leave at all?
Oh, yes. He came home on leave. Yes, he came home on leave, you see, and he was on leave when they offered him a commission. Having done about a year somewhere, can't think where he went at first. And that's when he said to me, if I accept a commission, then I'm pretty well sure to be sent overseas pretty quickly again. So he said, what do you think about it? And he was.
Well, tell me about the phone call again, because you told me off tape.
Yeah, well, I got a message from Mr. Howell, would I ring him up? I've forgotten where he was stationed then, somewhere.
Mr. Horrell was the local shopkeeper.
Yeah, old Horrell, you remember old Horrell? So I went over to the public phone box and rang him up, and that's what he said. He said, look, I've been offered a commission, but he said it does mean that, you know, I'll have another abroad posting pretty well at once. So what did I think?
And what was your reaction?
I said, well, you know, I know that it's your life, your career, and I know that a commission, you know, you like it, and it's silly to turn it down. More money anyway, more prestige, so go ahead.
And was he in a lot of dangerous situations, like he wasn't a frontline soldier?
No, but they were bombed behind the lines, yeah. And then he got dysentery. He said, oh God, you got out in the desert somewhere behind a boulder or something, he said, with your trousers down. Bloody Germans had come strafing over. You didn't know whether to finish what you were doing or pull your trousers up or what the hell to do. Yeah, but not terribly dangerous. I mean, you know, there were others that were in far more danger. Just occasionally they strafed them, you know.
And how did he cope with the stress of all that?
Oh, well, you know, a few drinks and fags, of course. Got them all through somehow or another.
And
but he was never the same man after the war.
In what way?
I don't think anybody was, love. I don't think anybody that had been through that war, whether they'd been combatant or not combatant, they're ever the same. He saw an awful lot of, you know, knew a lot of awful things. That you just really... Oh, he was the same, but he wasn't the same. You know what I mean? It did something, I'm quite sure, too.
Can you tell me sort of what more?
No, it's hard to put your finger on it, really. But I don't think they didn't like talking about it much. But I think it did them good if they could, you know what I mean? And knowing that there was so much, especially in the Air Force with the Battle of Britain, with all these young pilots, you know.
Did he talk about it much?
Occasionally, you could get but I think a lot of them bottled, well, most of them, I think, bottled it up, you know, a lot of them bottled up. But it stayed with them, I'm quite sure.
And what about you?
Me? Well, it was just, I was one of the lucky ones. I got him back, didn't I?
But did it change you?
No, I don't think. Well, it only made me very humble and grateful that I had him back when hundreds didn't have their husbands or their sons back ever. And now I feel that now, to this day, I feel that why me? Because I could have lost him as easy. I mean, on these troop ships going out, like sardines they were. If they'd been taught, they wouldn't have had it. I mean, so many went that way. Well, I mean, why was he one that came back unscathed? It was just a bloody miracle. Many did, of course, but hundreds didn't.
So when he went away, did you have this sort of black cloud hanging over you the whole time?
Yes. We all did. You know. Yeah.
So how did you keep morale up? How did you keep your spirits up?
Well, I was busy, see. I was busy with Ian and then with you eventually, and my mother and father came down because my mother, her nerves sort of went when they started bombing London, and so they packed up and came down. So I had quite a lot to, you know, to sort of kept busy. That's all you could do.
Do you think that the war process changed you as well as changing him?
Oh, I expect it did, Heather. I expect it did, love, yeah, probably. You see, I don't know, I mean, Dad must have, because he was right in it, but I was away from it, and you don't realise until sometimes years later, even now, what really happened and the sacrifices and things that, you know, you just live from day to day, and what else could you do? You were alive, you had to get up, and you've got kids to see to, two children to see to.
How did you explain to Ian why Dada was no longer there?
Well, he was very young, but in the end, of course, he didn't see much of Dad from the time he was about a year old until we went to Malta. Really, we were never a family again, really, until we went to Malta, and Ian was 7. Not really. I mean, Dad was in and out, and you know, sort of, but I mean, never really. No. And by that time, he knew about the war.
And how did you feel about the Germans, the German people?
I don't know what I felt, Heather. I don't know. I don't think I've never hated the German people, because I think I mean, the ordinary German people didn't want war, I don't think, any more than we did, you know. I mean, what I always thought, and I still think, it's made by these bloody politicians and people, and I think they're the ones that ought to go and fight it, not us. The little people like us are helpless. I mean, if Dad hadn't joined the Air Force when he did, which was extremely lucky, he would have been called up anyway, and probably in a far more dangerous position than he was in, because he'd already joined up and established himself and got his training and was able to do, in equipment. But I mean, he could have been in a far worse position if he got called up, which he would have done. He had no choice then, very little choice. He did have a choice, but then, when he joined up before the war, but he had no choice when you were called up.
Tell me about Winston Churchill.
Good old Willie, yeah. There's been an awful lot of criticism about Winston Churchill, and I mean, I suppose some of it's true. He was a rebel, wasn't he? Absolutely, and he was his own man, Winston Churchill. But by Jove, those speeches he used to make in the war, he was absolutely marvellous. It's the way he put them over, the way he talked, inspirational, absolutely wonderful. He really was a man of his time. Not a young man either.
Despite being a politician?
Yes, despite that. Wonderful.
And what about the royal family in the war?
Oh, they were quite good, really. They wouldn't go away, and they stuck around, They went to see all the bomb damage. Yes, they were a nice couple, those him and his stutter and the old Queen. Yeah, they were very much admired, because he'd stepped into his brother's shoes when he galloped off with Wallace. And he didn't want to be king, and he was a very shy man, and he stuttered and all that. No, I've got no. They were good. I haven't got much time for the other bloke that went off with Wallace.
Edward.
Oh.
Why not?
Oh, he was just a rake, wasn't he? Just an idiot. But, I mean, he was thought an awful lot of when he was young, when he was 20, 21 and all that. And, he'll make a marvellous king and all that sort of thing. But see that we don't know half these things till later on, do we? No, poor old family.
But then how do you account for Winston being dumped after the war?
Well, you see, yes. Now, that's a funny thing. You see, now, Dad was never Labour. Talking about altering him. He was always Conservative, voting.
Your father?
No, your dad, and my father.
I thought you said my father was a red ragger.
No, he was never Labour, not before, no. But when he came home from the war, he voted Labour. That's so many did, you see. They thought that, this government had been responsible for the war, and,
They thought Winston Churchill's government.
I suppose. Well, not so much Winston, but no, because Winston wasn't in the government when war was declared, love. He only came up during the war. It was Chamberlain, wasn't it? You see. And I suppose, I don't know, but stacks of them, including Dad, came home and voted Labour. I don't know why or what it was, but they did, and that's why Labour got in. But Dad soon changed round. The next election, he was back again into his old. But no.
And did a staunch Liberal like your own father change to Labour?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
And
but stacks of servicemen did.
And what did you do personally?
I think I stuck to Conservatives.
Why?
I don't know. I can't even remember if I did, but I think I did. I never took that much interest in politics anyway. Still don't really. Should have done, but no. But I do remember that. And that's why Churchill got chucked out at that time.
And you would put that down to the servicemen's
Yes,
right
they
then?
did, and stacks of them. That's well known. But I suppose they were so fed up.
The first thing I'd like to ask before we finish with the war, more or less, was about the atom bomb that was dropped on Japan.
Mm.
Do you have a memory of that and how
Oh,
you
yeah.
felt at the time?
Oh yes. Well, 2 were dropped. Yeah.
Well, tell me about that.
Well, I mean, it was all, on the news and all plastered on the papers and all that sort of thing, but I still really don't know how I felt about it. You know it saved a lot of our lives and the American, but it was a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing, but I suppose, I don't know, that's war, isn't it? I wouldn't like to morally judge it. I didn't have to do it, thank God.
So did it cause a lot of talk?
Oh yes, oh yes, it did, absolutely. People were very, because they gave in. They gave in. A couple of days or so after that, they gave in. See, they dropped one. I don't know, it was Nagasaki, the first one, and that didn't, So they dropped another one, and that did it. They said, well, look, we're going to go on doing this if you don't. So they had to give in then.
And going back to number 25, I'd like to do it in a bit more detail. For instance, I remember the path.
Mm.
Now, didn't you used to put ash out of the fireplace on the path? What was the path made of?
Dirt, and it got terribly muddy, and after it had snowed or there was a frost, you see, it got very sort of muddy and puddly a bit.
So what did you do with the ash?
So chucked it in the puddles and tried to make it a bit firmer, I suppose.
Right. And with the description of the house, it had a porch.
The front door, which we didn't use very much. Oh, and so did the other one. Yeah, yes, and the letterbox was there, wasn't it? The wooden letterbox.
I don't remember the letterbox. Tell me about the letterbox.
Well, you had to go up the path,
Yeah.
and then you turned a little bit this way to go in the
left.
back door. There's the shed. You walk past the shed, and then you turn it, and there was a path going up that way, and there was the
To the left.
Yeah, and there was the shed door, and opposite that was the back door. And you went in the porch, yes, and there was the wooden letterbox there, and then there was the back door, and you went into the wash house.
So if you went into the wash house and you used the back door mostly, when you're taking people into the house, did you take them through the wash house and then through the kitchen?
Well, it depended who they were, dear. VIPs had to come in the front door, like when Judy first came, or any of the sort of like, front door then.
Did most people come to the back door?
Yes.
And what did you keep in the shed?
Coal, and a big bench which was already there, along one, and that was all Dad's mess.
What, tools and things like
Oh
that?
yes, our motorcycles and God knows what mess, and coal.
And in the wash house, what was there for you to do your washing in?
There was a copper that I had to light up, brick copper, brick copper, and you had to light it up. See,
What did you use for fuel?
wood, or you could burn your rubbish. We used to burn a lot of our rubbish and peelings, or paper rubbish and things like that. And we had a rainwater butt when we first went there. There was a rainwater butt, and that was just past the back door on that. Just the back porch was there, and it was just tucked in sort of there.
To the
So
right
to the
right of the back porch. as you
yeah,
came out.
and it was very nice for washing. Nice, soft water.
When was water laid on?
Oh. Do you know, for the life of me, I suppose it was. I suppose it was before we went to Morton.
Well, it
I
doesn't
don't
matter.
think so.
Doesn't matter. What did you use for cooking?
Electric. Yeah. We had electricity for lighting. The electricity had come to the village, but not water and not pool plug, you see. No.
Did you ever use the stove in the dining room, the wood
Oh
stove?
yes, in the winter we used it, but I didn't cook. Well, I used to perhaps put simmer a stew on top or something, but I never used the oven because, you know, it was beyond me entirely.
And going down towards the back, the front door, there was the pear tree on the right,
Yes, huge pear tree.
and the front door faced a lattice work, and the paperman used to
Mm.
put the paper in there when he went next door. And then there was
There's a rambler rose grew over that.
and then there was a bed of lily of the valley past the front
Yes.
door, and the brook running behind. And what about things like gooseberries and blackcurrants? Did you have any?
Well, we had lovely, we had gooseberry bush, lovely black currants, and one of white currants, and right down the end of the garden, it came in the gate, and when it coming there to the right, there was 2 plum trees, Victoria plums, beautiful.
Did you bottle those?
And there was an apple tree in the chook pen.
And wasn't there another apple tree beside the shed? A crab apple tree or something like that?
Beside the shed.
As you came out the back door, directly to the left.
No, I can't remember the name of the pear tree, no. I know there was an apple tree in the chook pen.
What did you do about ironing?
Ironing?
Electricity?
I had electric iron, yeah.
And what about tradesmen and deliveries? The paper was delivered.
Absolutely, yes. Everybody, the butcher came, the baker came, the milkman came, and we had the grocers and things over the road, and even he'd deliver if you wanted him to.
What would you do about your meat order then, for example?
Your meat?
Yes.
Well, you could order what you wanted. He used to come and take your order. I think they used to come twice a week, the butcher.
So he'd come once and take your order for the next time?
Yeah. But you see, I didn't worry too much about that because I used to go into Ampthill.
Tell me about the chickens.
Well, we never thought, but when the war came, John suggested to Dad, I mean, he was marvellous, old John, he said to Dad, you know, why don't you get a few chicks? He said, you know, at least it'll keep you in eggs and, you know, and things like that. So they did. They knocked up the chick run, and John got this, you know, hut and whatever it was, the, you know, thing. And he bought these pullets for us. Very pleased we were with them too, my word, yes.
Did you have a rooster?
Yeah, blimmin' old rooster you called him Joey. Well, he got bigger and bigger and bigger. He had a great big, and he had great big, ooh.
Big home and big feet.
Yes, and we were going to have Joey Christmas, and no. We were going to have Joey Easter. You created, you kids, you and him. No. In the end, he died a natural death. He was buried by the toilet. Oh, he was a fierce old thing. I hated him. I wouldn't go in the chook pen. I hated him. He'd come out like, oh no, I couldn't bear him. He was awful.
You must have had a wonderful life.
He had a wonderful life with all these ladies.
And what about things like Guy Fawkes?
Guy Fawkes? Yeah.
Tell me about Guy Fawkes night.
Well, that's about the first one I can remember, when you had a big bonfire and this guy. But I think you must have had fireworks before that, probably. Ian must have done, I should imagine. That's the first one I can remember in our garden.
So tell me about that. What happened?
Well, we've got this big bonfire, you know, and you're all set on this guy, and John made this wonderful guy with old clothes on it, and sat him in the shed. He was in the shed for about a week or so before. and you love this blinking thing. And we haven't, what's it from over the road, David came over, and several kids all came round, for this bonfire, and I think we did some potatoes in it, and it was a real old do.
What were the fireworks? What sort of fireworks did you have?
Oh, you could get rockets and Catherine wheels and sparklers. You love the sparklers you could hold, you see, and Catherine and bangers that But that was the boys loved those. Put them behind them. Yeah, make you jump out of your life.
Who built the bonfire?
Oh, John and Ian and you all helped. Yeah.
You've mentioned John a couple of times.
Yeah, good old
Let's
John.
talk about him.
Bless him, he was absolutely marvellous, poor old John. He was wonderful.
How did you first meet him?
Well, when we moved down to 25, we had this, Nigel. And one Sunday, Dad was in the garden and the blooming dog, and he must have been down by the gate. Dad don't know what he was doing. And John walked by, you see, and started to, old John, he talked to anybody, and being new, he wanted to know all about who'd taken this house, and, and he'd heard about the sergeant from the Air Force and all that. So he got into conversation with Dad and things, and then of course he got very friendly with Nige. He loved that, and Nige and all that, and I think he was telling Dad about what to. I mean, Dad was no gardener, but he was willing to try. He was telling, you ought to grow a few potatoes, or you ought to, do something or another, and. Then he offered to come and help, I'll put you a few potatoes in, and things. Which he did, you see, and we paid him for, very grateful for that sort of thing. And see, I only had Ian then. And then he got the chooks for us, and we didn't know how to look, we weren't very, so he told us, what to feed them on, and I used to boil up all the potato peelings, and we had a chook saucepan, and made mash, and do all sorts of things, that we were told what to dig up for worms, dig up, and they'd all come round and scratch for worms, things like that, yeah. And then, of course, war broke out, didn't it? And then, of course, he dug himself well in with us, He dug himself well in, love. He came and, and he'd come and go. And when Dad went away, he said to Dad, don't worry. He said, I'll keep an eye on them, and I'll look after your dog. He did. Yeah, it was wonderful. John was wonderful.
So, what was in it for him?
Companionship, love. He'd worked for a woman that bred these pedigree at Olney in Buckinghamshire for several years. Lived in a or a cottage or something, and then she died, and that was packed up. So he had to come back home. And of course, he wasn't really employable, really, because his sight was quite bad, and he was a funny old stick, he wouldn't have got a sort of a regular job. But he got a job Saturday mornings in Bedford Market, and one or two farms around employed him now and again, but he wasn't really employable on a regular basis. And his mother was a funny soul, very, very house proud, his mother. I think there was a bit of mental in the family, because Keith, his brother, was a funny soul. Dorothy, his sister, she committed suicide, didn't she? I think so. Yeah. Lovely girl, but no, there was a bit of... So I think he found it very boring at home, very boring at home and things, and we were easygoing, and we used to come and go, and I used to give him a cup of coffee and bun or something, and he'd sit and natter, Yeah.
So he'd come every
And
day?
yeah, pretty well. He'd always bring something, you know. He'd bring a bone for the dog, or he'd bring something. It was a proper old scrounger. He'd scrounge anything from anybody, you know. Yeah. But he was a good friend. He was a wonderful friend. He really was. I don't think I would have existed without John. I don't think I could have managed without John. No.
Were there any other personalities in the village that stand out in your mind?
Oh yes, they were all personalities in a way, you know, village love. Extraordinary. There was the almshouses across the road. There was the where David, what was their names? David what?
Was it Taylor?
Taylor. You know where their house was, where Whatsit took after. Just there, 2 almshouses. And I went in once, and you know, coming from the town, there was the bed in one corner, this old soul, and a coal in the other corner.
A coal?
Yeah.
What's a coal?
Coal, you know, heap of coal for a fire, yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. There was a one room, see, one fairly big room, and that's how she lived. They lived, you see. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
Any other personalities?
And then, well, the Taylors were quite a personality. I mean, they were village people. She was Chapel. And she had David and she had Dorian, you see. And when they were, I don't know, they must have been, they were a bit older than Ian. But when they were quite old, really, they still slept in the same bedroom because they didn't have any, you know, and I thought it's a bit funny, you know, brother and sister in the same, wouldn't suit my two, I don't think, you know. And then Ian went there for his meals when I had Jean, because he came home to sleep because Grandad was back from work, but she fed him and gave him pigeon pie. He never forgot pigeon pie. Don't know whether he ate it or not, but no. But she was a kind soul. Yeah, she was a kind soul. Yeah, she was.
What about the Kirby's?
Yeah, the Kirby's had the ground out there back, and all the Kirby's, and she had a little tiny shop in the knoll. That was the knoll where the pump was, and cottages, and she had this little sort of general shop. Yeah.
What sort of a family were they?
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
In what way?
All bloody this and bloody that, all of them, you know. Yeah, but they were kind enough, you know. Yeah.
Tell us about Mrs. Page.
Oh well, Mrs. Page, see, was a Londoner, and she come down. They rented this house away from the bombs and things like that. So she and I had a lot in, you know, common really. She was a different kettle of fish. She was a very good friend to me, Mrs. Page too. I don't know how I'd have existed without her either. No.
And she lived at 75?
Yes, that's right. And he was in the Air Force, but I don't think he got up very far, and he came out after the war, you know, but he was away an awful lot. You don't think he went abroad like Dad, no, but he was away quite a bit.
So, you were seen as an outsider. Did you
Yes.
find the villagers friendly?
Yes, especially when war broke out. I think that broke, you know, that because they realised that Dad was in the forces and was one, you know, yeah. Yes, they were very kind. They were very kind. But always an odd. I always felt an odd one out, really.
Just getting back to the house, do you know who lived in it before you did? Number 25?
The Wrens lived in it when John was a boy, and her people lived in their house.